Nice. Thank you. Hello, fellow developers. My talk today is hopefully going to be a bit controversial compared to what you heard before. We heard a lot of good stuff about AI and what that will enable us to do. I'm gonna take a bit of a different angle to it. So if you disagree, let's meet up after over beer so we can keep talking and see what happens. So my name is Sebastian. I'm a co-founder of a startup, Sure, which is a food and drink recommendation service. That's also a Facebook Messenger chatbot. And today I'm going to talk about human-centered chatbots. So what does that mean? Well, in my opinion, it means that we're going to use chatbots to solve actual customer needs in a way that wasn't possible before with apps and websites. So what have I done with bots? Well, I worked on onboarding bots, I worked on support bots, I worked on shopping bots, news bots, and now a bot for food and drink recommendations. So I work for a few companies that are trying to explore this, a telco in Canada, Danish broadcasting company in Denmark, IKEA as well. So I have a bit of experience with chatbots. But I'm going to start off first about talking like, where are we with chatbots? So we're in 2017. You could argue we're in year 2 of the chatbot evolution. When we started a few years ago, 1 to 2 years ago, we got really excited about chatbots because they allow us to do something new, and they use some of the newest technologies that's finally mature, such as big data, cloud, natural language processing, computer vision, machine learning, all that good stuff, which is finally here, and we can combine it, which is really, really cool. And a lot of the chatbot trend started off in Asia, where they're truly mobile first and kind of skipped the desktop era. So that's very, very interesting. And we got really, really excited because we're thinking we could do experiences like this. Let's hope it works. So we're like, yeah, this is pretty cool. What we can do now is we can have an integrated experience within another app, a chat interface. You stay in the chat and you keep talking to your friends, but the extra app actually shows up in there. And you don't have to download the app, it just works out of the box. At the same time, it understands human language and it pops up whenever it's relevant. Pretty cool. We're like, yeah, this is finally happening. We can do chatbots. But that was 2016, and it was proclaimed as the year of conversational commerce. But we still haven't seen any good bots. Like, we haven't seen any killer use cases yet. So you could argue that we're now, if you look at the trend curve, we're kind of coming down into the valley of dissolution. Not a good place to be, very, very frustrating, actually. But we've learned a lot with chatbots. We learned that actually speaking and texting is not always faster than clicking buttons. You can see here using the Microsoft, their bot system, it actually takes us 73 taps just to get a pizza. And if you compare it to kind of a traditional UI, it's much faster at 16 clicks. So like, why would you text and talk to the machine that way when it's not that much faster? It might be novel, but it wears off. And also something we learned is, well, if you're trying to order something or you're trying to go through a flow, it's really hard to go back and change it. You're kind of stuck, and the machines must be really, really smart about intents, etc., in order to do this. So if you look at some of the newest chatbots and new experiences, well, they're gone back to UI because it's fast and you can change it up really quickly. So yeah, users need to be guided. That's better. And if we look at Facebook's F8 conference this year, then we saw that, well, WebView was what they're talking about a lot. That's what they're emphasizing. We should do more UI, almost have like micro websites within the experience instead of doing it conversational. And they're also very much keen on what they call chat extensions within the Messenger UI. So you bring it in when you're talking to your friends. So what were we thinking when we were building these conversational experiences? When we look at these experiences we just looked at, they aren't that good. So why did we end up doing those? And I think in order to fully understand why we ended up there, we need to go back and we need to look at some of the, backtrace some of our steps and figure out what we really wanted to do when we set out to do chatbots. So we want users to have a magical experience, and there's many words for magical experience. It can mean it's seamless, it's fast, it's delightful, it's surprising, and this always remembers me of the first time I used Uber, and I just clicked one button, all of a sudden a taxi appeared, I could track it on the way there, and when I was done, I just walked out. I never really paid for it. That to me was magic, it just worked. So yeah. And also, what we want to do as developers, designers, well, we want to empower our users. They should feel like they have superpowers, which means that they can do things that would normally be much, much harder in a much easier and seamless way. And what we also see today is, well, the customer journey is not linear as it used to be. It's very complex. And customers actually expect to be engaging with businesses and brand multiple times, going back and forth, sharing it with their friends, families, offline and online. So it's a messy process, and you could argue that it's actually quite conversational because there's all those steps. And what we thought here was, wait, we have all these single-purpose apps. Do we really need that many apps in all these steps? There must be a better way. So that's kind of what we thought about with chatbots. It could be a good idea to have those because they're easier. And then we also got inspiration from the East. If you look at WeChat, which is the biggest messaging service in China, well, they actually pioneered a lot of this with official accounts. And what they did was they brought in apps into the messaging UI. So now everything, all the apps are in the one interface that you use the most every day, which is quite smart. And also it meant that they could consolidate all the different apps. So you don't have all those random apps on your home screen anymore, but you can call them in whenever you need them. In WeChat, payments is one of the biggest things and one of the biggest value propositions, because it means that once the credit card is in there, you can just pay stuff. You can pay stuff online in the app. You can rent a car, buy Hertz. You can pay for lunch offline. So it's both online and offline, which is really, really smart. So again, really, really fast and simple to use. And you see all these services in here. There's money transfer. You can buy movie tickets, everything can be done within the chat interface. So what can we learn from WeChat? Well, one, there's much less friction. There's no app to download. There's no account to create. You already have an account in the messaging interface. There's no UI to learn. It just works. Also, you still get the core app functionality, even though you're kind of doing a web app within the messaging interface. So you get access to payment, location, user credentials, all that stuff. At the same time, you get access to the user graph. So the user's graph, you get access to their friends, contacts, and it's a great way for them to discover your services. And what we also saw was it's not just happening in the East, it's happening in the West as well. Like we have Amazon, they're doing dash buttons, kind of a simple IoT proof of concept, but it's the same idea. You have your credentials, you click a single button, and all of a sudden something appears by magic in the real world. Pinterest is doing buy buttons, there's Apple Pay, there's a bunch. So we had all this stuff in mind, but we weren't really thinking about it, or we just got overexcited, I think, and we went into chatbots. And it's still early. Like, it took apps a long time to get really, really mature. You remember the first apps, so like a beer drinking app and fart apps and stuff like that. Pretty stupid, but fun. So it's going to take us some time to figure out exactly what bots are. But I think we got caught up with technology and how well we thought technology actually was, like natural language processing. And I think we thought that, well, in the future, we're all going to have personal assistants we can just talk to. They can do stuff for us. Well, we already have that. They're called humans. And there are services like Magic and GoButler that allow us to do this. But it's not really new. It's not helping us do new stuff. So if you look at WeChat, what's actually new about it is that it's this operating system on top of the phone. We don't have to worry about the OS, but you can still build a real core experience. So there's something about this app within app that's really, really interesting that we never really got to explore that much. And I think we forgot. We were thinking about technology, and we forgot about actually use cases for these things. We forgot that we need to solve customer problems, and we need to do those by reducing friction to make it easier. So the way I see it, there's kind of two types of bots. There is the conversational software, which is products and services that you either speak or talk to. A good example is the Quartz news apps. If you tried that, that's quite cool. And then there's the other one, which is the app within apps. And you can call it different things. Some people call it multimodal computing. You could even call it ubiquitous computing or seamless computing. And actually, this doesn't have anything to do with conversation. What it allows us to do, though, is collect information and then deliver other information in the most convenient way to users. So that's what's unique about those experiences. And those are the experiences that you see in WeChat. They had an account where you could text, but they quickly went away from that because it wasn't actually faster. So if we like the idea of the app in apps, and we think there's something cool about those, especially before AI really kicks off, how are we going to build those kind of experiences, those great experiences? Well, if we look at it, then often they're quite simple in the front end because you have to use them in other services. But in the back end, there's a lot of complex stuff happening. And hopefully, they're also API first, or at least the API is the most important thing, because again, you need to interact with all these different clients. But that actually makes it very hard for us as developers, as designers, to visualize these products. Because which APIs do we need to build? Or which APIs do we need to interact with in order to solve those customer needs? And that's where I found this interesting concept I'm going to show you. And it's kind of weird, so bear with me. But it's the idea of Umwelt. And the German-speaking people kind of know what that means. But you can translate it into environment. But in this case, it's actually quite unique. It comes from biology. A German biologist came up with the word Umwelt in the 1800s. And the idea is that you can have two different creatures or species, and it looks like they're in the same world, like the frog and the spider. They might even eat the same thing, bugs, but the way they evolved means that their world is actually very, very different. The frog lives on the twigs, however, the spider lives in the space between them. So completely different world, and the way that they visualize their world and perceive their world is also very, very different. And that's based on how they evolved. And if you look at computers and humans, well, we don't come from the same source material either. We're also two very different species. Computers never had a body, and that's not how they interact with the world. So how can we use this concept when we're trying to build these experiences? Well, if we look at an example of, let's say we have a human in a situation, and that human is it has certain needs and trying to solve very specific tasks. Then if we take a traditional human-centered design approach, we would start to look at that person. What are their needs, where they're coming from, their background, which things are they interacting with. We would kind of break it apart, and we would then build a device, a service that the user could use to solve those needs. And the toolbox is stuff like jobs to be done, it's interviews, personas, all that's good stuff from the design world. But I think what we need to do is when we figure out that these two parts are very, very different, and they're almost like two different species, we actually need to look at it from the other side as well. We need to look at it from the computer's perspective. Computer is also in a situation and has tasks that it needs to solve and needs. And the system, since there's no body, it needs information from different sources, the user, but also other services in the background. So what kind of service does it need? What kind of APIs does it need to integrate with? Or which one do we need to build? And this, again, I think there's standard tools you can use to visualize this stuff, swim lane diagram, flowcharts, UML diagrams, whatever you want to do, traditional software engineering. But look at it almost as if this service is a person. I think that's quite interesting. So we're trying to build this environment where these two almost different species are trying to talk to each other in order to work towards a common goal. So we need to make sure that they have the right communication, the right channels, and the right structures in place in order to do so. And these people, or the computer and the human, they don't speak the same language. They don't think the same way. They're very, very different. So they have their own Umwelt. To take us back to the previous slide, and how do we bridge that? Because what we want to do is, we want to create this shared experience for both the human and the machine. And when we think about it this way, then there's, especially in UX, this is term about legibility, which in this sense you can talk about how clear is the information in the surrounding that these two entities occupy, and what exactly is the human looking for? What kind of information is needed? So does the human even understand that digital agent or the machine? Does it understand how it works? Can it see its behavior? There's a bunch of stuff the human will need to know and understand the information in order to solve their needs. And it's the same with the machine. Like, the machine doesn't sense the world in the same way as a human would do. So what does the machine need to perceive? Is it color? Is it temperature? Is it location? What can it be? And does the information the human is presenting to me, does that even make sense? Or do I need some other information to back this up? So, does this service need to interact with other APIs in the background? It could be Nest, like understand where the human is moving, or the temperature, stuff like that. And also, we don't want the machine to be bugging the user all the time about every single information, because that wouldn't be a pleasant experience for the user. So we need to figure out which other information this product needs, and how does it play well in the overall kind of ecosystem of interconnected things. So ecosystems, if you look at it from an ecosystem perspective, then it's not a one-to-one relationship where the human just needs stuff from the computer. It's actually more of a conversation, again, you could argue, where these two need to be able to speak the same language. We need to bridge the Umwelt, and we need to make sure that both the human understands the machine and the machine understands the human. So just to summarize, because I know the Umwelt, it's pretty abstract, but let's think about it. So what I would argue for is that we can have conversational experiences, again, experiences within a conversational interface, but we don't need natural language processing in order to do that. We can use UI, and actually the idea of apps within apps is actually a better experience than traditional apps, because there's less friction, and it's just available. So that's interesting. But these experience, they need to be smart in the same way. And today, they're not really that smart. They need to be connected. They need the right information. And they shouldn't ask the users questions when they don't need to. They should have that information available and just do it for the human, so it seems like magic again. And again, the computer and the human, they're two different species. So they need the right information in order to talk to each other. So I think we as developers, we need to figure out exactly how we can kind of accommodate that and which other information we need to go look for in order for the human to better understand the machine and vice versa. So that's some of my tips. Again, we're super early, so you guys should just go ahead and play with chatbots. I hope this was interesting, and I hope it sparked some ideas. If you guys don't agree with it, and you're like, hey, natural language processing is definitely the thing, come find me, and we can have some good conversations about that. But good luck with all your experiences, and we'll see you out there.
Thank you, Sebastian. Very interesting, but I've got to say, I don't know if anyone else thought this, but I was a bit disturbed when you referred to computers as a species.
Yeah.
Answer this honestly. Are you building Skynet?
No, but it's interesting because, again, this concept, what you can think about computers as, they're almost like an alien species. Like, they could as well come from outer space. And yeah, we might have built them, but they operate in a very different way. But I think Skynet is still far out. It's going to take a lot of time, thankfully.
Good. We're safe. We're safe.
Cool.
Thank you very much, Sebastian.
Thank you.